Hello and welcome back to the Stratford Public Schools Technology Department's Digital Learning Series, Tech Tuesday. Today, we're diving into Knowledge Constructor, Standard 1.3. This standard moves our students beyond simply finding information to actively building knowledge from it. The goal is to equip students with the skills to critically cure 8 varied digital resources to construct creative and meaningful learning experiences. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll thoroughly explore the 4 indicators that define the knowledge constructor. We will dedicate significant time to modeling with Dr. Eckler to ensure you walk away with immediate, actionable strategies for building critical thinkers in your classroom. The big idea behind Knowledge Constructor is a fundamental shift in student role. We move them from being passive consumers of digital information to becoming active, critical builders of knowledge who use data to create original, meaningful artifacts. This is a crucial pivot. In the age of AI and overwhelming online data, the ability to curate, evaluate, and synthesize becomes far more valuable than the ability to simply memorize facts. We are teaching them to look past the first search result, question the source, and synthesize that information into a new, complex understanding. The Connecticut Digital Learning Standard, Knowledge Constructor, is powerful. It states, students critically curate a variety of resources using digital tools to construct knowledge, produce creative artifacts, and make meaningful learning experiences for themselves and others. This standard is the engine for deep learning. It requires students to be savvy researchers, expert evaluators, and creative producers. Let's start with the foundation. Effective searching. Our journey begins with 1.3, Effective Research Strategies. This is about teaching students to be laser-focused when they search. Most students simply type a sentence and hope for the best. We need to move them beyond basic keywords to using specific search operators and Boolean logic like and, or, not to narrow results. For example, using quotation marks forces the search engine to find that exact phrase. Using a minus sign, a hyphen excludes irrelevant results. This is the difference between finding 1,000 irrelevant results and finding 3 highly relevant ones. To show you how to structure this training and make this abstract skill concrete, I'd like to introduce Dr. Eckler, who will demonstrate how to set up a simple Google Docs protocol to teach students how to refine their search technique.
Hello, educators. In order to make sure our students are doing their research intentionally, I am going to show you this Google Docs template that students will complete before they do their research. And this can absolutely be modified for any grade level. In the first column, you'll see I have driving question. This is where students will actually state their research goal. In the second column, I have refined search terms. Here, I will require my students to use different Boolean searches to help them properly search. So that might involve the use of single quotation marks or a minus sign, also the hyphen, to exclude words. For example, if we were doing research on solar energy, I might have them put the words solar energy in single quotes, which would force their search engine to look specifically for that, and then minus for panels because we don't specifically want to look at solar panels. This forces precision in their researching. The third column is the target resource type. This is where students will state what kind of source they are looking for. Are they looking specifically for a government report or a university study, or some other type of peer-reviewed research? This template makes their searching visible and accountable to you and stops students from being able to use AI to find all of their research. So in order to show you what this looks like, I am going to model an entry for a science project on pollution in the Housatonic River. So we're going to start with step 1, which is our driving question. that also includes a little summary of what the project is. So in this case, our project is the impact of local pollution on the Housatonic River. And the question we are asking is, what specific pollutants affect the Housatonic River ecosystem? And so now we are very specifically narrowing down what it is we are looking for. Now, the second part of this process is to actually write down our search terms. So in this case, let's actually make this darker so you can read it. We are looking for two specific things, Housatonic River and pollution. So you'll notice that both of these are in single quotes. However, if I search that way, I might start getting too much historical information. And I'm really looking for more current data on what's going on with the Housatonic River now, not what's happened in the past. So I'm going to add this in here, minus historical. And so now I'm going to be getting more current data in my search. Finally, we are going to talk about the target research type. Now, in this case, this is science. So I am looking for either a government report, that might be something from the Connecticut Deep organization, or I might be looking for a university study. So we have a lot of colleges and universities here in Connecticut. So maybe I'm looking for something from Yale or UConn. This is going to help me get more reliable scientific data for my project because I don't want to find a news article for this. While they may have some reputable information, they're not necessarily scientifically researched articles. And that's what we would want to do if we were doing a research project on this particular topic. So now you can see that I have a relatively complete first row in my intentional research planning template. Depending upon what you want students doing, they may have additional rows in here with more refined search terms and target resource types. But your driving question is likely going to be similar across this research. Now, that also depends upon how large this research is. In this case, it's a very small project on the impact of local pollution on the Housatonic River. And so this particular student just wants to know what pollutants are there. But if it's a larger research project, there might be multiple driving questions to get to the total point where they synthesize all the information.
Next is the most critical step. 1.3b. Evaluate information. If students can't evaluate a source, they can't construct accurate knowledge. The digital world is full of misinformation, so we need a systematic way to teach them to assess trustworthiness. We use the CRAAP Test, a time-tested rubric for source evaluation, which stands for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. The C in CRAAP stands for currency. When was the information published or updated? If you're researching solar technology, data from 1995 is likely useless. The R is for relevance. Does the information specifically answer your driving question, or is it a distraction? Teach students the power of the Control-F feature to quickly scan for relevance. The first A is for authority. Who is the author? Are they an expert in the field? We need to look for credentials, a PhD, a governmental agency affiliation, or a reputable university. If the author is anonymous or the site is clearly selling a product, the authority is highly suspect. The second A is for accuracy. Is the information verifiable? Does the source cite its own data with links or footnotes? A good source is transparent about where its facts came from. A quick cross-check in a second, independent source is always the best way to verify accuracy. The P is for purpose, check, bias. Why does this page exist? Is it to inform, sell a product, or convince you of a political idea? Identifying bias is crucial because it helps students understand the context of the information. If the purpose is persuasion, the information must be treated with greater skepticism. Evaluating is an internal skill. We need to make it visible and scorable. Dr. Eckler will now spend time showing us how to use Kami to physically apply the CRAAP test directly onto an article, capturing the student's critical process.
Okay, we are going to use Kami to make our students pause and apply the CRAAP, the CRAAP test, in action. I have a sample here on my screen for you. This is an infographic that walks your students through what actually takes place in the CRAAP test. And then I have two articles. Both of them look pretty professional, but we're going to take some time to assess them. And I'm going to give you a little hint. They're created using Magic School, so they're not even real. But that's a great way to have your students practice evaluating resources for bias before you actually get them to participate in actual research. So we're going to start first with currency. Currency is when was the article published? And we are going to do this by actually finding and commenting on that time period when it has happened. So let's go down to the first article, and you'll see here that this first article was January 31st, 2018. That was 6 years ago, 8 years ago, actually. It's almost 2026, so that was almost 8 years ago. So an article about climate change may or may not be pretty relevant or current, should I say, if it's from 8 years ago. So I'm going to go ahead and leave a little comment here. I'm going to come here, click on comment, click on the first text comment. I'm just going to click next to it and say 8 years ago might be a little off. And I just click off of it. And now I have a comment added to my my article saying that I'm questioning the year of this article. So let's go back up. And now we're going to look at relevance. So we're actually going to go through and highlight the central argument or focus for this article. And we're going to look and see if it aligns with our research questions. So our research that we're doing in this particular situation is about climate change. Let's take a look and see if the central focus of this article has anything to do with what I'm researching. And so I'm going to do this by clicking on markup, which is your highlighter tool, and I'm going to choose a yellow highlighter. And as I skim through here, I'm thinking that this first sentence right here is this article's main point, that our climate's in a catastrophic state, and anyone who disagrees is misinformed or part of the problem. So right then and there, you have some bias. We haven't gotten to bias yet. We're just focusing on the main idea. And if I were to go through, I could find other pieces within this article that would be part of this particular author's main idea. Now we're going to move on to authority, which is the person that wrote it or someone who where it's published. All of these things fall under authority. So we're going to switch over to our green highlight tool, and we are going to come down here and we are going to look at authority. So first we're going to look at who the author is. And in this case, we have a social media influencer and former model. Not so sure how I feel about that. And then the other piece here, we also have the New York Daily News. Not exactly research-based material for a research article. So I'm going to also leave a little note here for myself with Kami. I'm going to click on this. And I'm going to click this little note piece here, and I'm going to add a note that says concerned about the author. So I'm starting to think that this article might not be one for me for a scientifically research-based assignment. But I'm going to continue through the CRAAP test so that I can make sure and I cover all of my bases to ensure that I'm actually going through the process. So next I'm going to look for accuracy. Now, accuracy doesn't mean necessarily that I know 100% whether they're right or wrong. It means that I am able to say, there's no citations, or this might be a little bit more opinion than other parts. So I'm going to double check these sources. So we're going to go ahead, click here on drawing. And we're going to, any color, doesn't really matter. The idea is that you're going to use the markup tool to underline or draw a line through any information that needs a second source. So here we have scientific measurements show greenhouse gas levels are far higher than any point in recent human history. I don't know. Could be true, might not be true. I have no idea because there is no research to back this up. We come down here, record heat waves, stronger hurricanes, and worsening droughts are happening with increasing frequency. Where's the data? I don't see any data. So I would want to look and see if these statements are true. Could these be claims made by an author just to kind of get a rise out of people, or are they accurate? So we would want to go ahead and do some research further. Now, at this point, you may want to teach your students that if they failed a whole bunch of the areas of the CRAAP test already, so in this one we failed CRAA, I don't know if you need to look at the purpose and bias. Not when you're actually doing the research, but when you're practicing, you still want to make them look for purpose and bias. So in this case, you would actually take the comment tool, or not the comment tool, I'm sorry, the text box, add in a text box, and we're going to put in the purpose, which is to persuade. In this case, this author clearly wants to persuade people that climate crisis is the only thing in the world we should be focusing on right now. And then the bias is going to be that the author's bias is toward climate crisis being a hot button issue. And so they really want to make sure that we are focusing on that. Now, when you're evaluating a research article like this, or any article like this for practice, you want to go through the whole thing. When you're evaluating research for, say, a research project, once you start with C, and if they fail 1, 2, 3, usually it's a good idea to say, I don't even need to look at the rest of them because I'm really not so sure about this article. If there is so much information in there that needs to be double checked, it's probably better off going to those resources that you might double check with than it is to continue using something that isn't going to provide you with the information that you need. But the CRAAP test is a great tool for many of our students. It's kind of funny that it's called the CRAAP test. There is some people out there who say, is this article crap or not? But the idea behind this is to really get your students looking at these 5 elements: the currency, the relevance, the authority, the accuracy, and the purpose of the research.
Moving on to 1.3.c, Curate Information. This is where students transform scattered facts into organized knowledge. Curation is not just collecting links, it's organizing, connecting, and making sense of the information to draw new conclusions. Students must create collections of artifacts, not just a list of facts, that demonstrate meaningful connections and lead to new understanding. Think of them as museum curators, selecting and arranging exhibits to tell a cohesive story. To truly achieve synthesis, students must look for patterns, contradictions, and common threads across their sources. If one source says A and another credible source says B, the student's job is to synthesize that conflict into a deeper observation. This process forces them to move beyond a research report and become active participants in the information landscape. This synthesis is the moment they transition from collecting information to constructing knowledge. Dr. Eckler will now demonstrate how a simple spreadsheet is used as a rigorous synthesis organizer, forcing students to categorize, compare, and draw conclusions from their evaluated resources.
Now that our students have done their research, the idea is to move into synthesis. And synthesis is where knowledge is really constructed. So here I'm using a Google Sheet as a synthesis organizer. I've set up columns: theme or category, quote or data, source, and my conclusion or synthesis. This can also be adapted for any grade level, including kindergartners. Our kindergartners should still, when they're looking at science and looking at data, be able to synthesize what that means. This is a perfect way to get them to do that, obviously with some modifications to meet their needs. So now what I'm going to take a look at is specifically this final column here, the my conclusion and synthesis. You'll see that I've already added in several data points from sources I've vetted related to my topic on AI in the classroom. I've given them themes or categories, and I've put my sources. You could also even link to your sources here. That would even be more helpful to your students if they were linking to their sources so they could always go back to them. So in this column here, we have my conclusion or synthesis. And you're going to see this is where the actual like magic happens of the construction of knowledge. Students need to write a sentence answering what new knowledge did I gain from this specific data point and how does it relate to the main theme of what I am writing? Let's take a look at this last row here. This theme is academic integrity and critical thinking. We have this very strong quote here from Dr. Eris Thorne, arguing that when AI does the heavy lifting of summarizing, the student deprives their own brain of the cognitive struggle required for deeper learning. But at this point, the student can't just leave it there. They have to actually process that information and answer that new knowledge question. So the resulting analysis synthesis question or synthesis response would be this. While AI offers speed, this expert perspective highlights a major risk. Over-reliance on these tools could actively atrophy the very critical thinking skills we are trying to teach. Obviously, that's pretty high level. This is not a topic that you might be talking about with some of your lower grade students, but the idea here is that the writer, the person who is doing the research, is taking the research from other places, figuring out what it means, and synthesizing it. So now they have moved beyond just having a quote to actually understanding the implications of the quote. Now, this is a methodical process that helps with deep engagement with the material. Once they've inputted all of this, they can actually go ahead and even insert a filter by going to data, create a filter, and they can filter their themes. So if they really just wanted to look at the information they had on academic integrity and critical thinking, they can now look at that information. Very helpful for your students who need a little bit of extra support when it comes to only focusing on the important things for a particular paragraph within a research project or a particular couple of slides within a presentation. This would actually allow them to just limit what they're looking at. I can go back, I can just look at teacher workload and efficiency. Now it's filtering out those, and I can also go back and just select all, which includes my blanks below. But this is a way for me to very easily sort the information. It also would allow my students to sort the source here to see if maybe they have the right kind of sources they're looking for. Either way, this actually helps them to look at that synthesized data, make it thematic, and to go ahead and construct their final argument.
Once the information is curated, students produce a creative artifact. Google Slides is perfect for this. The student designs an infographic, a timeline, or a virtual exhibit based on the data they categorized in their sheet. They use the curated information to construct a visual narrative, making the learning experience meaningful and public. The ability to visually represent their new knowledge is the final step in the construction process, moving from text to communication. Dr. Eckler will now show us how to transform that raw, synthesized data in the Google Sheet into a compelling visual artifact in Google Slides.
So now that we have synthesized data, we want to go ahead and tell a story with that data. And so I'm in a Google Slides presentation right here, and I'm going to take some of my data from that chart, that sheet that I made, and I'm actually going to create a visual representation of the knowledge that I've synthesized. So I'm going to do this by going here to Insert, and I'm going to click on Building Blocks. And what building blocks is going to do is bring up a variety of different ways that I could visualize the information that I have within my data. And I'm going to start here with this lists because I feel like this might give me the best visualization of what it is that I just did. So let's try this one. It's a nice little graphic here. I'm going to stretch it out to make it a little bit bigger so I can fit some more information in it. And let's say here I really want to focus on the themes that I came up with in my in my data. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start here and I'm going to add my two themes in. And maybe since I noticed in my themes, there's actually, oops, look at that. You always want to be careful when you copy and paste. There's actually four different things here. So let's change this around a little bit. We're going to call this one critical thinking. We're going to call this one academic integrity. We're going to call this one teacher efficiency. And we're going to eliminate from this one efficiency. And we are going to name this research themes. So that's one way of visualizing what it is you're looking for. Let's add another slide in. We're going to make this slide just a blank slide. We're going to come back over here and let's take a look at how I might want to show my different synthesized pieces of information. So this is a nice little chart right here that might allow me to do that. So we're going to change our titles here. So we had teacher workload, we had teacher efficiency, we had academic integrity, and then we had critical thinking. These are our four themes in our research. And let's go ahead and take some of our synthesized information and pop it in. Now, these may not necessarily be perfectly lined up because I did change up my themes a little bit. So students would want to go back and fix that, but I'm taking the information just to show you what it might look like. And here you could see that I already have, so I have my research themes, and then I have my synthesis. And I could always add a little header in here if I wanted to, up at the top, and just call this synthesis of research. And I can go ahead and I can add a variety of things to this. I can add images. I can go to insert image. We can find stock and web photos. This will search. So let's look for AI. And so we can add a stock image here because those are allowed. And so now I've added a little graphic to my slide. And so students can go ahead and visualize the data that they've researched to basically show what they know.
Finally, 1.3.d, explore real-world issues. This is the application phase. We want students to apply the knowledge they've built, the research, the evaluation, the curation, to authentic problems. This moves them from writing reports for a grade to creating solutions for a client. The learning must have real-world weight. This might mean researching a local civic issue, analyzing a global economic trend, or developing a policy proposal for a school challenge. To make learning authentic, the task must feel like professional work. Instead of a report on school cafeteria food waste, the student develops a policy proposal for the principal. Instead of an essay on local history, the student creates a virtual tour for the town library website. This forces students to consider audience, impact, and feasibility. We are shifting the mindset. The student is no longer a learner, but a consultant or an expert applying their constructed knowledge. Creating these highly relevant, local, and authentic application tasks can be time-consuming. Dr. Eckler will now demonstrate how to leverage Magic School AI to quickly generate complex, authentic project ideas.
All right, so this is where the magic happens, pun intended. We are going to go ahead and create an authentic task for our students using Magic School. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find project-based learning tool. Now this is going to give me a much more authentic task for my students to complete. So let's take a look here. We are going to use this little prompt that I have for you, generate three authentic project ideas for grade. Let's go with grade 5 on the topic of street crossing. Let's say there's an issue with crossing the streets. The final deliverable must be a policy brief or a public service announcement intended for, let's go for Stratford Town Council. So they're concerned about street crossing. Any additional detail that we want included in the project? Maybe we're going to, we want this to be some sort of Google Slides presentation preferred. But for our tech-savvy students, Canva can be an option as well for them. And then if we're going to add to any standards, let's say we specifically want this to be to the C3 frameworks for social studies. And let's generate and see what we get. So here's our now that we've prompted it, we have a question or challenge. How can Stratford improve street crossing safety so community members, especially students and older adults, can travel confidently and safely? You now have a research question to share with your fifth graders. You have a real world context. You have some in-depth inquiry for them to look into. You have some voice and choice for them. You have reflection. There's some opportunities for critique and revision, the product they will complete. There's opportunity for collaboration. This here gives you a ton to start with to develop a project for your students. Now, always remember, human interaction with this. Once you've created it, download it and go through the whole thing. Change things up. Make it make sense. You want to make sure this aligns with everything that you are doing. You want to make sure that there is human input into the work. So first we have this. Now we're going to go ahead, we're going to go back to our teacher tools. We're going to do our lesson plan generator. So now let's say we want to make sure that we have a solid lesson to go along with introducing this. We'll stick with our grade 5. We're going to copy and paste this here. This is a prompt for you. And we are going to change this to create a lesson plan on street crossing that incorporates the design thinking process and requires students to apply their knowledge to solve the local problem of students crossing the street outside of the crosswalk. We're going to go ahead and take a look and see what this is. So maybe some additional criteria. This should lead into their project on crossing the street. And in this case, again, we are going to do the C3 frameworks for social studies and click generate. Now we should get a lesson on safe street design, solving the crosswalk problem. This is using the design thinking process. So students will actually go through that 5-step process. This is an entire lesson for you to start with. Now, again, you want to go through this as I'm watching it continue here. You want to go through this. The human input is critical. You also need to now make sure that this lesson aligns with the project you gave them. So you want to make sure it all goes together. But how much time would it have taken you to come up with all of this? You have a great start here in Magic Tool. Now you just need to put your important brain power into it. Now let's go back to our teacher tools and we're going to do one last part, and that's the rubric generator. And we're going to go ahead and create a rubric for this. Now I have a prompt that includes the word high school in it, but we're going to go ahead and change that up. So this is 5th grade. I want to make this on a 5-point scale. The project is here that students are going to create a policy brief or public service announcement. So I'm going to add that in here. And then the assignment description is that students are going to create a policy brief. You know what? Let's take this one step further. Let's go back to my output history before we even do this. This is what I can show you. So here's my project ideas. This is the one we just created. Let's go ahead and copy this entire thing. Let's go back to output history. Nope, I'm sorry, we're going to go back to teacher tools. We're going to go back to our rubric generator. And we're going to paste this assignment description in here. We are going to take these standards from the bottom. These are the aligned standards. Please excuse my inability to copy and paste here. Let's put those down here under standards. You can delete that word aligned standards. We're keeping it 5th grade. We're keeping this. Let's go up and find the actual assignment of what students are going to do. It's hard to copy out of these boxes sometimes because they want to keep jumping around. But let's take this here and let's put this here. Remember, you would have already revised all of this and made it look nicer and align with what you want. And so you would just copy and paste from your Word document or your Google Doc. But I'm going to go ahead and do this and let's see what we get. So here we go. We have a rubric popping up here for me. I'm going to go ahead and take this rubric, modify it as I need to. I can also talk to it here and say I need there to be more clear delineations between levels. Spelling matters sometimes, delineations between levels. Let's see what happens. So now it's going to give me even more delineation between my levels. That below standard piece is over here. You just have to slide this little bar over to see it. Unfortunately, when you do a 5.1, it doesn't fit. And so you as the human are going to go through this. You could take the whole thing, make it change it, make it what you want, package it all together, make it look exactly the way you want it to look. And now you have a really cool project that takes your students through the ISTE standards, that focuses on research, that focuses on good research. And even though you used AI to help you create it, it's practically AI proof for your students. I say practically because not everything is guaranteed. However, you will see their thinking throughout this. You are making their thinking visible here. And when you make their thinking visible, it is more difficult for them to just submit something created by AI to you.
Thank you, Dr. Eckler, for demonstrating those powerful, in-depth strategies, especially the synthesis and authentic application methods. These live models showed us exactly how to put these tools into practice to build true knowledge constructors. Ready to construct knowledge in your classroom? The key is stacking these skills. Start small. Implement the Google Docs focused search protocol with every research assignment to train intentional searching. Once students master that, move to evaluation using the Kami Annotation strategy to apply the CRAAP Test. Then, challenge them to use the Google Sheets synthesis organizer to actively build connections and draw new conclusions from their data. Remember, small, manageable steps build strong knowledge constructors. All the materials for this session are available for SPS educators right now. We've included the customizable Google Docs focused search protocol template, the Kami CRAAP Annotation Guide, the Google Sheets Synthesis Organizer template, and the Magic School AI Authentic Task Prompts used by Dr. Eckler today. SPS educators can check the Google Classroom for these tools. Thank you for joining us today and for your commitment to empowering your students. We look forward to seeing you at our next session.